Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, Your Excellencies, friends, our fellow partners from Azerbaijan. First of all, I would like to begin as the Director of the Academy for Cultural Diplomacy to express our congratulations to our partners in Azerbaijan for really serving as an example to initiate not only conferences such as this, but the entire Baku process, where we find at a time in the world where it seems like coming together and discussing and showing mutual respect is all the more rare. Azerbaijan has been doing this continuously, year after year. So we definitely need to commend those initiatives and hope that this model will also inspire many other countries and organizations around the world to continue in this effort. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to pose just one question and share a few reflections with you before I turn it over to the fellow experts. How can cultural diplomacy help to foster cooperation through interfaith and inter-civilizational dialogue? First of all, three reflections where I see opportunities for cultural diplomacy in today's global context. The great scholars, the late Benjamin Barber and Cornel West of the United States, were convinced that the world today is no longer a world in search of independence, which had been the goal of the nation state for so long, but rather it was a situation of global interdependence, where the most important aspect is, as was discussed this morning, cooperation. Talking is great, action is much more important, as the speakers were saying earlier this morning. How does one create and how does one reinforce the situation of global interdependence? I'll come back to this in a moment, but I think that's the first point I wanted to share with you when trying to characterize opportunities for cultural diplomacy in the global context. Secondly, unfortunately, as one looks in the media and one looks around the world, really, let's say the last 5, 10 years and even before, we're seeing more and more fragmentation between groups, whether it's Republicans and Democrats in the United States, Brexit on this side of it or that side of it in the UK, the more fragmenting political situation in Europe. We need to start acting right now. It's not enough just to have talk. As wonderful as it is, everyone who is in this room, we have to recognize the fact, much more important than the people in this room is everyone who's not in this room. And I think there, my one recommendation as we discuss what cultural diplomacies could assist, we have to be very, very serious when we talk about target audience. Who are we trying to work with? Religious leaders tend to, I think, have very good discussions, and it's usually very easy for us to have this kind of a discussion, to have this kind of a conversation. But what about those who are maybe in political parties where they're maybe less supportive of this, whereas we see again more and more extremism in Germany, in France, around the world? How can we work with those groups? How do we reach the youth? How do we reach firefighters? How do we reach judges? How do we reach nurses? How do we reach high school teachers? Really citizens in the fullest sense of the word. That's, I think, the transition that we hope we can see after a conference such as this, that we will be inspired. Hopefully we will think a little bit differently about this issue and immediately take action into our hands. And even if it's only affecting one human being, if one human being breathes easier because some cultural diplomacy initiative that we did, excellent. And I think sometimes it's even better and easier to think small. Let's have one program, one initiative, work with one school, with one group. And then step by step, if there's enough of us working in the same direction, you can have a long-term effect. I wanted to conclude with a famous saying that very often is quoted in cultural diplomacy. It's not totally true, but I think it does say the point that I want to raise here. Politics demonizes, culture humanizes. And of course that's not always true. We have many politicians in the room, so I mean no disrespect there, but let's not forget also the power that we have when one brings different cultures together, the power that we have by working with different groups. And to think specifically how cultural diplomacy could assist, there's two ways. First of all, I would say direct cultural diplomacy, just like a conference like this, we're directly dealing with an issue such as interfaith dialogue. Sometimes even more important and even easier, especially when you're working with groups who don't necessarily want to work together, is what we at the Institute call indirect cultural diplomacy. Let's bring them together for another reason. Let's have a business conference, or let's have academic exchange, or let's have a sports festival where everyone is playing on the same team. Those sorts of indirect strategies sometimes are easier, especially when you're bringing groups together that traditionally have not had that chance for dialogue, understanding, and trust. So again, my congratulations to our fellow partners and organizers for the event. We very much look forward also as an institute to working more with Baku, to working more with Azerbaijan, to try to make sure more examples of such conferences take place, and again, that we can reach the target audiences where it's really vitally important and vitally urgent that we try to reach. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody has many things to say, but the time is limited.